It works! How exciting. I'm on a rolly chair. It's not the most stable when you get excited. I am lighting a candle, as I always do for these things. It gives me some time to collect myself from the nerves that kind of sometimes happen a little bit when I hit go live, because I'm a human. And also to allow this to gather you. Hello, Victoria. To gather some of you so I'm not alone, because that's my favorite. My favorite is not being alone. I don't know about you. It's my favorite. And I'm also practicing, teaching while in this situation. I practice what you guys get in these live sessions. So I've done 2 so far, and from my memory, hi, Kirsten. Christy. I don't know how you want to say, how is it, Kristen? No, it's not Kirsten, it's Kristen. Hi, Sophia. Hi, Richard. The first one, I talk about all kinds of skill sets. So when I'm here and live on my page, I'm just in it. When I teach an individual skill set. But the last 2, the first one was heavily centered around care. Yesterday it was the deconstruction of shame, blame, guilt, doubt, unnecessary fear, and on and on. I highly recommend those both, and you can find them on this page that you're watching this on under videos, I think. I think that's how it works. I hope that that's how it works. I'm just going to look at myself over here so I remember what I wrote, because oftentimes I write what my topic is and then I completely forget. I saw a photo you posted earlier on, or I saw some cut hair. I wondered if you did the big chop. I did. I mean, here's the thing. And this is what it looks like. That was a big chop. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I have to go back and look at the video yesterday and you'll notice how much is gone. But I have more hair than anybody I've ever met. As far as like, I mean, you can even tell there's like so much thickness, right? So that was a big cut. It was a big cut. I am debating, not that you're all here for this, or that you care about my haircut, and it's definitely not the value I want to provide, but I'm debating like bangs or like more layers up in here. It's a little bit terrifying. And then just to let it all grow out. But you know, we'll see. So I named this, and I'm on fire with it because I've been having a ton of conversations with people about, you know, sexism, misogyny, patriarchy, capitalism, all these things that are oppressors, and specifically around being a woman, and obviously about being a white woman, very particular to that experience and not someone else's. I don't know what other people's experiences are. So I do not participate in my own oppression, and deconstructing biases is a part of being a mature human. It's super important to be able to bring awareness to how we think and why we think that. What am I thinking? Why am I thinking that? Super, super important that we develop that. It's a crucial skill set as an adult to be able to look at what we are thinking and not identify as, oh, what I think is who I am. What am I thinking? Why am I thinking that? Do I still believe it once I've pulled it out? Is that something I actually believe? And then that's only the beginning. The second part is, where am I participating in that biases or that construct or that belief system? Hi, Emily. Actively, not on purpose, but because that's what I was taught to do. I was indoctrinated to believe certain things. I was conditioned to believe certain things. I was given experiences by the adults in my childhood that led me to believe things. And as an adult, so many of us have not been told, given permission, taught that we get to question what we think. We get to question, why do I feel uncomfortable around certain people? That doesn't make sense. You know, like older people, people of color, certain religious, whatever. Like, why am I feeling this? Why do I have that thought? is that my thought? Can I pull it out? And can I deconstruct the thought? And can I find out, is that what I think innately? Is that my own thinking? Super important skill set. And today on the internet, hi Laura, it is easier than ever to go and test a bunch of your biases. Just look up biases. There's a ton of universities that will take you through a ton of like psychological biases tests. And that will just be at the beginning of the awareness. I highly recommend it. When I started doing this 20 years ago, it was a little bit more difficult to find, like statistics testing and all those things. But that's just a beginning piece. It's just one tiny piece of the skill set of deconstructing our biases. And also just stepping back and being like, why do I believe what I believe? Is this belief something I want to keep carrying around? That's the first step, right? Just to be able to craft and create awareness, to craft and create, to even have the thought, I want to look at what I think and why I think it, right? That's huge. I mean, that sounds so simple, right? And it is simple, but it's also ginormous. Like, it is ginormous to want to create more awareness for yourself, about yourself. That's a big step. So that part's required. That part is required. And as you do this, as you start to become aware of your thinking, and you begin to pull your thinking out and look at it and be like, oh, is this what I want to think? Is this, does this work? Then it like buds and blooms your awareness. And then you can start looking at a belief that I have been swimming in, that's all wrapped in a nice sexism and misogyny, biases and conditioning about what it means to be a woman. And then there's what it means to be a man. But I'm going to talk about what it is to be a woman because I live that experience. And I mean, I could talk about the one about men, but I can only talk about that from my lived experience of what I believe and have been taught to believe, but not as an experienced. So I speak from my experience. And as I started to pull out all this sexism and this misogyny, and there's a lot of steps to that I'm not going to go into for sake of the storytelling today, right? Not because I'm trying to keep anything secret, just for sake of time. There's looking at the thought and pulling out the bias. And if you're here and you're with me today, or you're watching this sometime later, please feel free to interact. It helps me. Feel free to join in the conversation. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to be present with me or not. You can also just be here. Either way, I appreciate you deeply, deeply. I just want to put that out there. So, biases, the thought process, and why I wrote what I wrote, right? So one of my very clear boundaries for myself is I will not participate in my own oppression. And for me, that means misogyny, sexism, patriarchy, those kinds of things. Hi, Stephanie. For me personally, my personal, and why this is so important, let's get to that part for maybe first, is once I began to see the biases and understand the patterning and what it causes, then I had to ask, where am I participating? How am I participating that in myself? And once I started to be able to unravel that inside myself, where am I participating in my own oppression? The first level, right? First level is seeking out and crafting and cultivating and practicing the awareness of how and why you think the things you do. Who taught you that? Why do you believe that? What's going on here? That's level one. And they're all together. This is just how language works. Level two is seeing it, looking at the pattern, beginning to understand how the pattern works. How am I participating in that in my own ways? How am I an active participant? Not because I'm a dick and I'm an asshole and I'm stupid, but because I've been taught and indoctrinated to believe these things. How am I participating that within myself? So how am I oppressing myself through that mechanism of patterns? And then, of course, it becomes, how am I oppressing others? How am I contributing to the oppression of others? And over that long period of practice, you begin to be liberated. And when you are liberated from your biases and you do not and refuse to participate in your own oppression, you can never participate in the oppression of others ever again. This is why this is so important. And the work that I teach is about self first, right? This individuation that has to happen for us to be able to take care of others. See you later. Thanks for being here. See you soon. Interesting word, indoctrination. An example, I was talking to someone today who has a friend in an ICU unit that's not looking good. I'm sorry about that. I asked them if they would like to visit the sick friend. Their first response was that they must check with the family, then how the friend's sister is not fond of her. Yeah, I probed later, and they were saying if the friend was in the normal ward, they would just go and visit them. But then I asked, would you like to go to the hospital, stand outside the unit? Their reluctance was again to do what the social conditions are. Hi, Melissa. Yeah, and there is in my opinion, obviously, I hope, Andrea, everybody who listens to this, watches this, has ever been around me at all. I'm just talking about my experience and my opinion. If something doesn't work for you, throw it in the trash. I'm not saying, this anything in absolutes, although I speak with a very clear opinion and a very clear experience, so it can, come across that way in language. I would go to the hospital too, but I'm not your friend. And in the Western world in particular, we are so confused when it comes to what is right in human relating and what is respectful. And we don't have a shared value set on that. And so it gets even more complex. And I always do what I feel is right. What I feel is right, taking into consideration other people's cultures and ways of being to the best of my knowledge in that moment. So there are nuances to this, but not participating in my own oppression. And as I ought to do is I'm going to tell some stories. And I have a client and a friend, because almost all my clients become friends. I'm not that person who's like, I maintain this, it just works for me. But I work in very intimate groups. So, who has 3 boys, and due to their circumstances, those boys have been indoctrinated and conditioned to believe that women are less than, to believe that there is absolutely nothing wrong, not by her, by the family of their father, that disrespecting and bullying women is just what you do. And that brought up stuff for me, right? How when we tolerate that as women, we participate in the condoning, the sanctification of that behavior towards ourselves. And sometimes we have to, because our safety isn't there. So there's a nuance and there's a complexity. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you are physically able to be safe or know what your risks are and take those risks and understand the consequences. So this has been one of the things that really lights me up about oppressive, dominant structures and how we participate in them. How we are not clear enough about our value, because we've all been taught here's a bias and a conditioning that isn't true at all. And it is one of my guiding lights and principles in my life. It's one of my boundaries. And that is that there's this idea of worthiness, and it becomes a conversation and a negotiating tactic. Like, well, human beings they have just value because they're alive. I don't feel like I'm good enough. Well, what does good enough feel like? This is how I ask people how it's like some bullshit that you've been taught. We think we know what not good enough feels like. Right? We think it's a feeling when it's really just a thought construct we've been taught to believe is true. I'm not enough. I'm not worthy of XYZ. That's indoctrination and it's bullshit. There is no equivalent, right? If it was real, it was a real, like, so emotion always has like a circle. Emotion, if there's sad, there's happy. Take that into infinity with a metaphor of emotional experience. As a human being, our natural emotional experiences will always have a counter complementary opposite. But not enough is not a feeling, not enough is a construct. You're not going to find in yourself, hi Alexandra, the feeling of enoughness inside. No matter how hard you dig, no matter how much work you do, no matter what, because it doesn't exist. Because our enoughness is innate. Our value as human beings, regardless, no condition, no nothing, no reason, simply is. It is not up for discussion. No one is more valuable than anyone else. No one is more valuable than anyone else. This is where we start to participate, not because we want to participate in not enoughness in the world, but we have many of us, I don't know, all of us are swimming in the soup of you're not enough. And you have to do X, Y, Z to prove that you're enough to exist, right? To be loved, to be cared for, to be given, I don't know, food, water, shelter, safety, to spend time with your loved ones. You have to prove something you have to be valuable. Bull crap. I'm pulling that bias and that conditioning right out, right here, right now. And what I want for you is not to believe me. Because if you feel like you're not enough, that's a real experience you're having. That's real. I'm not trying to yank that out. I'm telling you that it's a lie. And I'm offering you the opportunity to look at it that way. And spend some time marinating in the looking of it in that way. Hi, Ryan. Not enough is a construct. And it is a sorry, I have to close this over here. Otherwise I get distracted. Okay, so if I can convince you that you are not enough, I can manipulate you, coerce you, abuse you. If I convince you you're not enough, I can sell you pretty much anything I got to sell. If I can convince you you're not enough, I can manipulate your behavior rapidly to do what I want you to do. It's a really ugly construct. And it is a commerce created by capitalism that commodifies, objectifies human life, plant life, animal life, the life of the planet. So enoughness comes in. It's a bias and a conditioning. I offer you to just look at that it's a lie. There's nothing you have to do to prove your value as a human being. You can have valuable skill sets. Maybe you can change car tires. Maybe you're a mechanic. Maybe you are an engineer. And those things have perceived value in the marketplace. But then to take that ideology and put it onto human life, is the root of a lot of our problems. So that's a first layer. But when it comes to my own, and I had to go through that layer to no longer participate in my own oppression. When I started to become aware of just how much the world, if you're a man here, if you're a woman here, I am not attacking you. And I'm not saying the things I'm going to say, following what I'm saying right now, are not an attack on men. I am talking about a systemic issue, right? A system of belief patterns and narrations and conditioning that we have all been swimming in. I am not talking about that man or this woman. I'm talking about an overarching systemic issue that we are all swimming in. So when I became began to become aware of just how much the world was not made for me as a woman, and a biological woman with the hormones that I have, with the way that my body operates. I've had 4 children. I've breastfed 4 children. I'm right at the beginning of menopause. All these things started to make things really clear to me that the world is not made to support or nourish what I am in my body. And it started really young. And there's that place, kind of in the phase of things where I started to get really mad and really pissed off at the systems, at misogyny, at sexism, at patriarchy, at capitalism. Really fucking pissed, because these things were not made to work for me, let alone anyone, really. But as it goes with the great awareness, it started with me first, being able to feel, see, and know those systemic issues that had been taught into me as a kid. That's what I've been fed and taught to believe, and how I've been fed and taught to act, and what is appropriate and not appropriate within those systems. Hi, Jenny. Of sexism, of misogyny, of all the things that hurt us all, actually. But as a woman, it started to become really clear to me as a young one that something's not right. How many times I was sexually assaulted or harassed as a teenager, as a child. Something's not right. Something's not right. And I'm not saying that the things that I just said do not happen to men and boys. They do. I'm talking about my experience as a woman and my own oppression. Me being oppressed. So, of course, I recognized the oppression happening to me. And I started to say no. And in that process, I began to realize I cannot change that man or that woman or that system from oppressing me. I have no control and no power over that system or that person who is oppressing me. I have no power in a whole group when somebody makes a sexist comment and a sexist comment, a misogynistic comment, something really gross. I don't have power to change any of those people at all. None. But I have my voice. And so I started to turn towards myself. Where am I participating in my own oppression? Where am I saying, okay, yes, I agree with you. I'm less valuable than men. Yes, I agree. I'm less valuable in the community because I've had children and I'm not producing in the world where they say I should have my value. Where am I agreeing? Where are those thoughts bound inside of me that keep me in participation? Where is that? And I started to pay attention internally. Hi, Willem. And hello, everybody who's here. If you're new or you've come in, please feel free to interact, to ask questions, to tell your own stories. I just really appreciate it. And so in this learning about my oppression as a woman, as a mother, as a woman who is aging, as a woman who had children, as a woman who was breastfed, as a woman in corporate work, as a woman online, as a woman. And as a white woman, it's important because there are women of color that get it even heavier. There's even there's racism on top then. That's a whole nother level of oppression that they experience that I don't. So kind of like pulling out the seeds of my own oppression. And then, I have 2 daughters and 2 sons. And I know, and I knew I cannot change the way the world functions. I can't change these systems by myself. Just because I say, no, that's bullshit. Just because I know that's some crap. That's not going to make life for my daughters or my sons easier, more fruitful, more meaningful. But what I can do is while they are growing up, I can speak about all of it. I can tell my stories of my experiences of being oppressed, of being abused, of being maltreated because I'm a woman. And then I realized, holy shit, I'm going to have to educate. Because they're not going to get this education anywhere else. They're not going to get it outside this house. They're going to be invaded with the indoctrination of misogyny and sexism and racism outside the doors of my house. I will have no control over that. I will have to educate them. And I had to start, and this in no way is saying my husband is bad or wrong. I had to start by teaching my husband. Why? Because he grew up in the same indoctrination and the same conditioning and was blind to the truth that the world works better for men. It is designed to work better for men. Period. And because he's swimming in that, hi John, that's what he knows. That's what I know. I'm not mad at anybody who can't see it because we've been taught to not see it. And we've been taught to make the man's life easy, make the man's life get out of the way, give him all that. We've all been taught that men have more value. You know, I had 4 children. I had sex with my husband and I got pregnant and we had 4 children together. But my body went through a complete transformation, giving the energy to this baby to make it 4 times. And then I nourished them from my body for like 1.5 to 2 years each. Hi, Robin. I couldn't stay on my career path during that time. I mean, I guess, of course I could have, and I made my choices, and wherever you want to go with that crap. But I won't participate in my own oppression. Having children and breastfeeding them is a gigantic contribution to families and villages and societies and humanity. It's a lot of work, and it is not valued. So each time I would build up my practice or build up my business, build up my resume, and then I would get pregnant. And I would be sidelined to be pregnant, to have a baby, to birth them, and to stay home and breastfeed them for a period of time. At no point was my husband's career moved at all by that experience. His body did not go through what my body did. He did not wake up every night for a minimum of 1 year per child and breastfeed all night. He continued to be able to build his business equity and his business things, all because I stayed here and held this shit down. And there was, you know, some weird sexism shit that came out of his mouth sometimes. And I had that needs to stop right there. What I'm doing is not less valuable than what you're doing. You going to work, I appreciate it unbelievably. Like that's fucking cool that you're doing that. It is not more valuable than what I am doing here. It's not more valuable than the things that I do within this household. And on top of that, I work online. So my kids are, you know, my youngest kid is 14 right now. But if he comes back here's at the door, if he comes in, he knocks on that door and you and I are talking, or I'm on a Zoom with a client, that door is going to be open. I'll be like, hey buddy, what do you need? And if the person here has a problem with it, we won't be working together. Because part of me being me is I'm a mother. And I don't sacrifice this or my life with my children. They are the same thing to me. Who you see me being here is who I am at my kitchen table. Who you see me being here is who I am when I facilitate a group. Who you see me being here is when I'm consulting companies. This is the same person you get. I don't change. I don't even change my clothing. Like, I wear and look and act and smell the same. So that's when the education began of my lovely, wonderful, amazing husband, who is he's the best human I know. But he didn't know. And I would tell him, and he's a kind and wonderful man. He would listen, but he didn't quite get it. He believed me, but he didn't really. And as my girls began to grow and my sons began to grow, and I kept being present about respecting both the men and the women and the males and the females, and we even have a non-binary in our house, that we respect them for them. And it's equal respect, and it's equal care, and it's equitable across. We are not the same. We don't all contribute the same, but we all contribute. And we contribute to our capacities, and we contribute to our abilities, and we contribute from who and what we are, including what our bodies are. And there is no one who gets more than somebody else for the sheer fact of their gender. And I've been holding that boat down. And as my children grew, I knew that my boys needed to learn about this, because they're going to go out, even if they have male or non-binary partners, they need to be good partners. They need to not do this thing where somebody's more valuable or less valuable. That needs to not be happening. It's not a good way to relate. And as my girls and my boys went out into the world and came back, they did not have the same experience in the world. And there were many times I've sat my boys down and my husband down, my girls, and I said, okay, guys, we're going to talk about what happened to one of my girls today out there in the public world. And you're going to sit here and you're going to listen. And my daughter would explain what happened. There would be some indignation sometimes. There would be some judgment sometimes. And I sat there tenaciously, hi Tila, making sure that there was no misogyny and no sexism allowed at my table. That the patriarchy was not showing up in those conversations when my girls had been abused. When they'd been oogled or grabbed or followed by men. That when they didn't feel safe in public, it wasn't just a one-off. It wasn't just, oh, that doesn't, not all men thing. No, sit down and listen. These are the women you love. These are the women you're in a relationship to. You cannot belittle what their experience is in life. I will not have it. Some people would call me radicalized. They wouldn't be wrong. They wouldn't be wrong. And I have leaned in so many times with my husband and my boys and other men that I love and care about who I know want growth. So many times. Done a shit ton of emotional, mental storytelling work. Because it matters. But it's a lot of work. To be able to hold my own pain of my oppression and educate people who don't see it. Not because they're bad people, but because the world doesn't work that way for them. And I just have never given up, and I never will. And this is one of the ways in which I don't participate in my own oppression. So when my son, my oldest son, who's amazing, one of the most amazing humans I've ever met, he tried on society's bullshit. He, when he was about 17, and there's many stories like this, and these are children and they're growing, they're learning reference. I was walking down the hallway, it's like a tight hallway, and he took his whole body and jammed me into the wall. Now at this time I was doing jujitsu and I was, pretty buff. I don't know. Some of that had to him thinking that he could just do that. And I was like, oh no, you don't. You don't do this ever to a woman. Ever. And he's like, oh, what, you can't handle it? And I'm like, no, you can never do this to another woman ever in your life, what you just did to me. Ever. At this point, my husband's pretty much on board, right? And so I call my husband, babe, and my son goes, what, you gotta call dad? And my husband comes around the corner, he's like, why don't you tell me why she had to? not perpetuating the oppression crap forward, not allowing sexism and misogyny to get any root into my children, my daughters who have had to advocate for their right to exist as women in their industries because the world's been made for them. My daughters who are still continuously learning not to participate in their own oppression. Where do I speak up? When do I speak up? As women, we have to think about this. Am I safe to speak up? If I am not safe to speak up, I don't. I'm a woman. That is true because I don't live in the world I would like to, where we're all safe. But I will not in that moment oppress myself internally, not for a second. Not for a second where I silence myself from the raging scream that is happening inside the privacy of my own being. No way. I will walk out of there and I will know that what happened was bullshit. And I also know that I walked out of there without saying something because there was not a safe space for me to do so. That I would put myself in physical danger should I say something. And there are many times I put myself in physical danger and said something anyway. Because I had to for me. Because I had to go home and look at myself in the mirror. There are nuances and complexities. And there's a lot of time on task, what you hear in my voice and what I'm saying. I have a lot of experience. 20 years of practice of what I'm talking about. Where do I participate in my own oppression? And then root it out. Pull it out. Take that seed. Move it out. Not do that. And I will not stand by and watch and participate in the oppression of others. Ever. Hi, Thomas. No, I will not. I will not. I will not. I cannot. Once you do the work of not participating in the oppression inside yourself, you can't. And you will see every system and every layer, hi Dolores, where oppression is. You'll be a different human. I'm going to say this boldly. Oppression, suppression is not natural to us. We've been taught that structure. Misogyny is not natural. Sexism is not natural. Ageism is not natural. Racism is not natural. All forms of oppression are not natural, innate, human, instinctual, innate, natural orientations. They're not. They're all taught conditioning and constructs. And we can unlearn them. We can. I have. Hundreds of people that have worked with me have. We can unlearn them. And because we're swimming in the soup, I'm going to always be learning. This learning never stops. Right? I will always find more pieces of the shit and more pieces of the gunk that are not me, that I have been indoctrinated to believe. And my job is to unroot them out of me, not let them live inside of me, not allow them to show up at my kitchen table or the table where I'm negotiating a contract or at anywhere that I am. I am not okay with it. And I will make a very clear stand. Hi, Jane. I cannot change the oppressive systems of the world. If I could, I would pour it in, right? So much shedding feels good to let go. It feels good to let go of the BS. It also feel really frightening. It can also feel really intense. It can also feel really heavy. Hi, Ingrid. It can be really overwhelming because you're stepping out of the construct that has guided human relating for the last 5,000 years. The one of oppression, the one of superior, inferior, the one of you better not, who the fuck do you think you are? The one of I'm going to tell you who you can be and who you can't be. The one of if you don't follow the rules, you don't belong and we're going to ostracize you and you don't have value anymore. You step out of that. And you're like, I'm really in the place. Go ahead, try to shame me. It is not going to work. Try to sell me some bullshit about how I should put Botox in my face because it's got wrinkles on it. It's hilarious to me. I'm like, you've got to be kidding. Why would I want that? No. And if you do want that, I'm not judging you. So that's really important. Nuance, right? Complexity, the ability to hold all of it. But not to hold the oppression, because that's some bullshit. So I'm highly aware that I cannot change the systems, but I cannot participate. That's like, people talk about free will. I don't have free will when life comes to my door. Life does life. But I have control, free will, capability, resilience, and choice within the privacy of my own being every moment of my life. We all do. We've been taught that we shouldn't. We've been taught that we don't have the right to be aware every moment, that we cannot say no immediately. I had somebody show up in my inbox today. Those things were like, hey, Shanti, would you like to scale your business? Like, I can give you a whole crew so you can book out all your hours. And I'm like, ugh, why would I want that? No. But what I wrote was, oh, thank you and no. Thank you and no. And it was immediate. I didn't have to sit back and think about it. Thank you and no. Hey, you wanted to sleep? No, thank you. You want to do that? Yeah. You didn't even let me finish. I know, I'm in. The ability to make choices immediately without having to think. Of course, there's nuance. There's many things where I'm like, I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'm going to sleep on this. I know in the moment what I feel is right, and I might take a minute. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like when you sit for hours or months or weeks or years. Not because you're stupid, not because you're stuck, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you've been indoctrinated and taught to not know how to think for yourself. The major indoctrination of the Western world is that they have taught you what to think about yourself, about others, about the world. You have not been taught how to think. And how to think comes super innately to you. It's not even something you have to try to do. It's something you do. It's normal. It's natural to you. Your innate way of thinking is fucking cool and super rad. And I guarantee you is inside of you right now. But you've been indoctrinated not to listen to it. And you've been indoctrinated with a real thick layer of what you should think, how you should act, who you should be, what you should look like. That's all a bunch of crap. Anyway, I'm very passionate about it. I've taught myself to let go of everything that isn't me, that doesn't feel good to me, and to not be afraid to say no. Yeah, feels good to say no and be myself, regardless of society or others' views of me. I agree. And it's practice. It's not just like, woohoo, voila, I'm going to make this choice and this is how it's going to happen. I'm going to make this choice 500 million times until it becomes easy. Over and over and over again, I'm going to take this out, take this out, take this out, take this out. It's not, and when I talk about it, it sounds simple. You hear the embodiment in me because I've been doing this for 20 years. Not because it is that easy. It's simple. It's completely straightforward. It is the most innate way. The skill sets that I teach are an innate way of being human being. That's it. And they're easy in the sense that people go, oh yeah, oh right, oh duh. It's just, oh yeah. Oh yeah, this feels right. This feels real. This feels embodied. This feels rooted. This feels human. It's not some construct we're not trying to be something. We learn skill sets, and the skill sets allow our full awareness to be present in every moment. That's it. Nothing fluffy. Completely concrete. Hi, K-Star. So many deaths in this life of mine, and so many rebirths in myself. Yes. If you've been here for a while and you want to say something, I'm still here for another 10 minutes probably. I could go on and on and on, by the way, about not participating in my own oppression and how highly I recommend it. I highly, highly recommend it. And, while I was going through this and while I was advocating at my kitchen table for my sons and my daughters and my husband to understand these constructs and to also not participate in them, the result, if you will, the relationships that happen between all of us blow my mind and root me more in myself and are all the validation in life that I need. There was a conversation that I need to keep part of it private because it's not mine to tell. But both of my daughters looked across the table. A male person in our life had a big growth, a big growth of like, I get what you guys have been saying. I see it and I'm experiencing it as if I get it. Like it's in my body. I get what you've been talking about being women and how you're treated and the comments and all of it. I get it. I see it. I feel it. And what they're doing about it was sharing their story. And I was like, yeah, we're sitting. And both of my girls simultaneously, who are 18 and 21. Oh, and then this male person that we love looked at them and said, we also have a non-binary person, so it was my two daughters and our non-binary child. And they all looked right at me. And one has only been my child for 2 years. And they said, this is possible because you raised us. That was me. I made that contribution. That growth in that male person in our lives was possible because I just kept putting it on the table and I just kept saying, this isn't okay. That's not okay. You can't question your daughter or your sister or your cousin. What were they wearing when some fucking dude followed them home? You can't do that. It stops right here. That's not how this works. You can't be suspicious. You've got to listen. These women in your life, they don't lie to you. Why would they? That's me not participating in oppression of women. And I'm like super radical in this. There was a situation with my daughter when she was 17. Again, nuance, right? There's nuance, but I'm just going to tell you where I'm at. 17 and a 50-year-old man. He's a white dude. She's a white girl. 50 years old. Is a relation to her. Does not live in our house. He starts to bully my son, who was 13 at the time. And there was a sled involved. And there was like this back and forth pull. And he was bullying my son, my 13-year-old. And my 17-year-old comes up behind him and she puts her foot on his sled. And she's like, what are you doing? Why are you talking to him like this? And he gets in her face. She's 17. She's a girl. He's at 6 foot something. He's a man. There's a bit of an exchange. He gets right up in her face to the point where she's like this. And he says, fuck you. And he pushes the sled and he leaves. I wasn't there. He wouldn't have even tried with me. He wouldn't have done that if there was any other adult standing there. He felt entitled to this. And when asked about what the heck is what happened, why would you treat her like this? I was just meeting her attitude. I was just matching her attitude. He's 50 years old. He towers over her. He has the audacity to yell, fuck you, in her face. She's 17. People ask me, are you ever gonna, forgive? No, I'm not. Do I understand he's got his issues? Yes, I do. Do I understand he lives a privileged life that he can't see through? Yes, I do. Do I understand he fucked up in that moment? Mm-hmm. I will always stand for my daughter. Period. That scenario I just told you is only possible because we're all living culturally and societally in the belief system that that's normal and okay for a man to do to a girl. It's acceptable, or he wouldn't have had the audacity to do it. So in my world, in my life, it's utterly unacceptable. Now, if he did the right thing, which would mean making proper amends towards her, my door's open. Instantaneously open. I'd be sketchy as shit. I'd be giving him side eye. He don't get anywhere with me. But my door would be open. Until then, fuck no. I don't know who the hell he thought he was in that moment. I haven't met him face to face since then. I don't think he's looking forward to that. I will ask him, how come you're not making amends? And I will not let him tell me that it was her fault that he did that. I will not participate in that oppression. I will not participate in that narration. I will not participate in sexism, misogyny, or the idea that an adult treating a child like this isn't abusive, is not violent. It's okay. It's normal. Oh, you had a bad day. Children have bad days. Adults do not. You have a bad moment. Shit happens. You navigate it. You maturely position yourself in the thing. You don't have bad days towards children. No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm so clear on this. It scares people sometimes. It's okay. I'm not scary. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm just so clearly holding that line of, I will not participate in bullshit. I will not participate in making it easy for those who have more power and privilege to do shitty ass things. No, I won't. Oh, I feel so clear. I think I might even call him. Now you're seeing in real time how I find my clarity. Anybody here have any questions, want to share? Again, everybody who's here, who's been here, who comes and watches this later, if what I'm saying moves you to think a little bit differently, I've done my job. If what I'm saying is trash to you, put it in the trash. Everyone here is adults, can make your own choices, your own decisions, do what you want to do. That's on you. I'm just offering what I know to be true. Giving a bit of what it is, the experience of what it is to be embodied in a level of maturity that I think the world needs. Knowing what is right and what is wrong and being a stand for that. Right? Not participating in my oppression means I don't participate in the oppression of anyone else. Means I say it as I see it. Means I'm not sorry when I rock the boat and make other people uncomfortable. That is never my intention when I rock the boat. I'm not trying to rock the boat to make other people come. In fact, I don't think I'm rocking the boat. But that's what I would be told. Because I'm challenging that status quo. Are you sure? I don't think this is right. This isn't okay. And there's nothing that will budge me from that. One of my deepest beliefs, and every time I post about it, it gets banned, is that children, not a single child in the world, anywhere, should ever be subject to any kind of violence. Any kind of violence. Physical, mental, emotional, sexual, spiritual, material. Never be exposed to violence. And my imagination, because I have a very active imagination, I live a lot of pipe dreams in my body. Right? One of my pipe dreams is imagine a world, global human value was that no child anywhere should be subject to any violence. Imagine the policies, imagine the structures that would fall and the things that would change if we all had that value, and what that would change, not only for children, but for everybody else. Oh, I like that idea. Thank you guys for being here. I'm sorry that you're navigating depression and illness, Ingrid. That can be rough. And so I always, for things like this, I always, I so highly suggest, and you don't have to listen to me because you're an adult, that I trust my body. If I'm experiencing depression, I need to slow down. If I'm experiencing illness, I trust my body. One of the deepest fallacies we've been taught, especially in the Western world for the last 5,000 to 8,000 years, is that we can't trust our bodies. And in length, we can't trust ourselves, that our bodies are acting up, that our bodies are up to something no good. Instead of, I trust this vehicle, I trust this, every tissue in my body. And it's been a lifetime of gathering that trust back to this body. I recently had COVID really bad. And one of the joys of that was just trusting my body. Taking all the things, because I was not about to suffer. But really just trusting my body to, I took ibuprofen, I took cold and flu, trusting my body to take that in and make it happen, and trusting my body to move through what it was moving through, and not a single moment of stress or fear or doubt that what was happening with my body wasn't right, or that there was something wrong, or if it's there and it's here, then it's something. And I trust myself and I trust my body. And those two things, as simple as they sound, are not a given in the way we've been taught to think. The way we've been taught to have a relationship with ourselves and our bodies. Trusting yourself and your body is not in the narrative. It's not in the stories. It's not in the systemic belief systems. It's always trust others, outsource it, trust your body. I'm going to the doctor tomorrow. I go to the doctor more than I ever have because of menopause. And I happen to have a very good and amazing doctor that I trust her opinion. And I always make a choice. With her counsel, I make the choice that I feel is right. I trust myself most. Right? I trust myself most. And yeah. So if you're still here and you've been here, you're coming back, you're at the end of it, thank you. I want you guys to know that there is a series of these videos, and Facebook only keeps them up right now for about 30 days, I guess. I'm going to see if I can get my daughter to figure out, meaning learn the tech, to take them off of Facebook and put them on YouTube. Scares the shit out of me because YouTube is a whole nother thing. But see if I can do that, because they've been incredible in the information and value. So there's been 2 prior to this one that are on this page, and I highly recommend them. And share them with your friends if you watch them, only if you've watched them. Do not share them if you don't know what I say in there. Share them with your friends. Watch them. My next my year-long program begins on the 12th of February, and then I won't be doing as many lives. But up until then, I will be 4 or 5 days out of the week. I'll be doing these lives at 5 p.m. my time. I'm in Central Europe, in Switzerland. And they'll be up there. And if you want to keep joining me, just keep looking out for it. It's not going to be every day. Definitely not on the weekends, but during the week, I'm going to try. I'm going to try. Unless I'm cooking, then I can't. But I highly recommend them. And if I soothe, if I help to open an idea around something, then I've done my job. That's what I hope to do, is to share my lived experience and the teachings that I know, and give you everything I got right here, right now. And if you'd like to be in a container with me, let me know, and I will send you the details. All right, guys. See you on the other side.